To begin your 2-point perspective cityscape, you will need a white piece of paper turned horizontally side to side and a 2H pencil. 2H means that it is a level 2 on the hardness scale of pencils. It's easy to erase and it makes a very light line. With your 2H pencil, your white paper, and a long piece of cardboard, you're going to draw a straight line across side to side the middle of your paper. This is going to be the horizon line. A horizon line in a drawing stands for or represents the furthest thing that you can see with your eyes. I know it's really blurry, but I drew a horizontal line across my paper from side to side, and it's about in the center. And then on the very end, each end of the line, we're going to draw a tiny X for our 2 vanishing points. So now you have a clearer picture of the line that we need in order to get started on our 2-point perspective cityscape. Before we move on with drawing the buildings in this 2-point perspective cityscape, I do want to talk briefly about what vanishing points are. So in a flat drawing, when you are trying to create the illusion of space, you're going to need vanishing points to do it. And what vanishing points are is a point on a horizon line where everything seems to get smaller and smaller as it goes into the distance and eventually vanishes or disappears because it's too far away to see. So that's where the 2-point part of the title of this lesson comes from, 2-point perspective, a project that is in perspective using 2 vanishing points. Now that we know all about the horizon line and vanishing points, we are ready to start drawing the buildings. After you have a horizon line and 2 vanishing points, we need to start drawing our first building. So we're going to use a vertical line and a ruler to draw the edge or corner of the building, and it needs to extend above and below the horizon line. Next, we are going to build the sides of this building by connecting the vanishing point to the top of the line you drew. So I'm drawing a line that hits the top of the building here and stretches out to each vanishing point on either side. That's going to create a diagonal slope that will create the illusion of space. Now we need to do the same thing on the bottom corner. So we need to connect the vanishing point to the bottom of the building. In the end, you'll end up with a diamond shape, and that's just right. So now we have the corner of the building built, and what we need to do next is decide how wide the building is going to be. To decide the width of the building, we're simply going to slide over our ruler and keep it vertical, matching the corner edge of the building. And we're going to draw a line that connects the top line to the bottom line. You can make it a really wide building or a really narrow building. Just make sure that you leave enough space to add more buildings on either side of it. And voila, you can see here that I've created my first 3-dimensional looking building in 2-point perspective. In 2-point perspective, whatever part of the building that's above the horizon line is going to be things you're looking up at. The part of the building that's below the horizon line is objects and things that you're looking down at. So now from here, we can start to decorate this building. Any vertical lines that you use to create windows and doors can just be vertical, straight up and down. However, when you start to draw the tops and bottoms of windows and doors, you're going to need to use the vanishing point. The things on the right-hand side of the building, like the windows and doors that are on the right side, need to be matched up with the right vanishing point. So here you can see I'm building a doorway. The sides of the door are just vertical, no vanishing point needed, but the top of the door, I needed to connect to my vanishing point. So the top of the door is at an angle, and that angle matches the vanishing point. Here's another example. I'm working on the right side of the building again, and I'm going to draw a series of windows. The sides of the windows are simply going to be vertical. I don't need to use a vanishing point to find the angle. However, when I start to add the top and bottom of the windows to finish the rectangular shape of them, I need to use the right vanishing point. So I need to use my ruler and connect it to the vanishing point and then up to where my window is, and draw the top and bottom of the windows at that angle. Once you're finished, you should be able to see the optical illusion that is created by connecting the lines to the vanishing point. And that, in a nutshell, is 2-point perspective. Now, when you're drawing things on the left side of your buildings today, you need to use the left vanishing point. Now, I'm trying to go for a very, very different look on the left-hand side of my city versus the right-hand side. On the left-hand side of my city, I'm going to be using big, blocky, futuristic-looking shapes and forms for the buildings. And so I have parts that are popping out and parts that are concave and going in. And for those types of things, you actually need to use both vanishing points to make it work. But if you're just doing regular windows and doors, the ones that are on the left sides of the buildings need to use the left vanishing point, just for the tops and bottoms. Now I'm done with my first building, and I'm going to start building out my city to the right. And so the first step will be to decide how wide I want this building. I'm going to draw 2 vertical parallel lines to designate how wide and how tall this building is going to be. And I'm going to use my ruler for that, scooch it just over from the last building I drew, and draw 2 vertical lines that go all the way down to the bottom line. Then I'm going to use my left vanishing point to create the left side of the building. Unfortunately, my ruler isn't long enough to extend as far as I need it, so I'm going to grab up that piece of cardboard once again so I can reach the building from the left vanishing point. And the bottom left of the building as well in just a moment. And to create the top angle of my building on the right side, I'm going to use my right vanishing point. I'm going to complete this block shape for the building with 1 more vertical line. And I can't forget to go back in there and create the bottom edge of this building. It's on the left side of the building, and so I will use the left vanishing point to do it. We need to add at least 3 buildings on each side of our center building. And so you can decide to work by creating the building shapes first and then adding the windows and doors and decorations, or you can work 1 building at a time where you draw the shape of the building and decorate it and then move on. I'm going to pause the decorations on house number 2 for me, and I'm going to add 1 on the left side. For this building, I decided to really up the ante and make a stack of different shapes on top of each other, and also added a pop out to this building as well. And so once you really get used to using the left vanishing point for the left faces of the buildings and pop outs, and the right vanishing point for the right faces of the buildings, then you can start to make things that kind of look like this. Continue adding details to your buildings using the vanishing points and vertical lines. And I want you to think about cities you've been to or cities that you have seen in movies or on TV, and use some of those elements to make your cityscape a beautiful work of art. You can add siding to buildings, you could add brick, you could add stairs, you could add balconies, windows, doors, even little scenes inside the windows if you wanted to do that. Really quick, I want to take a moment to teach you how to create stairs using 2-point perspective. So you'll obviously have a horizon line with the 2 vanishing points on either end, and we're going to make sure that our stairs stay below the horizon line. Then you need to decide which direction your stairs are going to be facing. If you are walking up your stairs and you go to the right, then you're going to want to use your right vanishing point. If you walk up your imaginary stairs to the left, you'll start out by using the left vanishing point. I am going to create a set of stairs that goes up to the right. So my first thing to do is to create the bottom of the stairs using the right vanishing point. So in your case, you'll probably have a building there, and that's going to help you determine the size of your stairs and even which direction they're going to be in. But since I'm just drawing these stairs out of the blue, I am going to draw them really big, and I'm going to measure out the bottom edges of the stairs with a straight line, 2 of them actually, that connect to the vanishing point. So what I just did is decided how wide my stairs are going to be at each step of the way. Next, we need to connect to the opposite vanishing point to create the last step of the stairs. So I'm going to connect the space in between my first 2 lines with that. Next, we want to decide where the back edge of the stairs are going to be, how tall are these stairs going to be, and how steep are they going to be. So down at the point where the 3 lines connect, we're going to decide the angle of the stairs. Mine are going to be kind of realistic stairs, not too steep. And I'm going to draw 2 parallel lines to show the steepness of my stairs. For the angle of those 2 lines, it's your decision, no vanishing point needed. Next, I'm going to draw the back of my stairs, which will be with a perfectly vertical line at the back. Last, let's make something called an inclined plane by connecting to the left vanishing point and connecting the side edges of the stairs. What you should have is an inclined plane, which is like a piece of pie that got tipped over, right? It's like a triangular 3-dimensional form. And we drew it in 2-point perspective because we used 2 vanishing points to find the proper angles. Once you've got your inclined plane, it's time to divide it into equal segments for each one of the steps. So what I like to do first is measure out how many steps there are going to be in these stairs. And I'm using my ruler to help me measure them out so that they're all the same length. It looks a lot nicer if you have a set of stairs that has all the same step lengths and step heights. And once that's measured out for you, use the left vanishing point to draw each line of every step at the area that you measured it out at. So now we have a nice inclined plane that's split up into even segments for each step. But what we need to do is make them actually look like steps. And the first step to doing that is to draw a short vertical line that drops down right where each step begins. Once you're finished with the side of the stairs that's closest to you, go to the other side of the stairs and do the exact same thing. Where each one of these diagonal lines hits our inclined plane, we need to drop it down with a short vertical line. It's time to use vanishing points once again to complete the stairs. On this right-hand side of the stairs, I'm going to use the right-hand side vanishing point. And I am going to draw a line at the angle of the vanishing point at each cross section of the diagonals and verticals that I just created. It's hard to explain, so I'm just going to let you watch this part. As you can see, the steps are beginning to be formed with this simple set of lines that I'm adding. It's almost like a very complicated connect the dots here. And once you have all of the steps matched up to the right vanishing point, because they're on the right-hand side of the stairs, you can go in with an eraser and erase any of the lines that are in the way or too long. So I'm going to create the zigzag step formation by erasing the diagonal line in between each step, and I'm going to erase the lines that were just a little bit too long of the vertical lines dropping down from each step. And when I do that, I really start to see the stairs emerge. We're getting really close to finishing these stairs, but there are a couple more steps. The first one being to connect the left vanishing point to the drop-down angle at the bottom of each step. So I'm going to connect this little corner here all the way to the vanishing point to create the inlay of the stairs, where the stairs angle inward for your foot to fit on them as you walk up them. Again, it's really hard to describe in words, so I will let you watch. The last two steps of making these stairs are to draw horizontal lines that connect to the lines we just drew to finish the left side of the steps. Next, once that's over with, all we need to do is erase the unnecessary lines. And once you're done erasing, it's always good to take a softer pencil, maybe a 2B pencil, and trace over your whole set of stairs to make everything really clear. Obviously, drawing stairs takes a lot of steps, and it's a pretty advanced skill to draw stairs in 2-point perspective. So that is your artistic decision if you'd like to include stairs leading up to one or more of your buildings. It is not a requirement of this project, but if you're looking for a challenge, go for it. I am going to add a set of stairs going into this building space right here. I'm going to follow all the steps. The biggest difference is that I'm working with a building now. It's not just a standalone set of stairs, and so it makes it just slightly more complicated, but otherwise it works just the same way. You choose which direction that your stairs are going to go, and you start off by using that vanishing point. And then you need to build an inclined plane, split it into equal sets of steps, and then create that zigzag in and out effect on the stairs with both vanishing points. Another thing you might want to try on part of the building or a whole building is how to create a brick pattern on it. So I'm going to show you, I have this fresh building that I built in 2-point perspective, and what we're going to try to do is create a brick pattern. When you're looking at a brick pattern just face on, straight forward, it's a set of horizontal side-to-side lines with short vertical lines that go in a pattern to create the individual bricks. Like this, what I'm drawing right here. A set of horizontal side-to-side lines and short vertical stripes, if you will, in each section. But the key is to create bricks is that once you have your first set of vertical lines, the next set right below needs to be offset from the first. So I'm going to draw my next set of bricks just slightly shifted so that the line hits the center of the brick above it. And then on the next row, I'm going to line up with that first row to create the short vertical lines. That concept is exactly the same in 2-point perspective, except that the horizontal lines need to hit or point to the vanishing point. So let me show you. On the left side of the building, you need to use the left vanishing point, and on the right side of the building, you need to use the right vanishing point. It makes a lot of sense. What you're going to do is fill up your building or the area that you want to have brick on it with horizontal quote-unquote lines that actually are diagonal that go to the vanishing point. And if you want to be really meticulous about building these bricks, you want them all to be the same size, right? So you might want to take your ruler and measure increments and mark them with dots where you want each row of bricks to begin, which is exactly what I'm doing. It's worth the effort. Once you're finished with that and you have a series of little dots that will be targets to line your ruler up with, simply draw a series of diagonal lines that point directly towards the vanishing point all the way down the side or face of this building. Once that's finished, you can start adding your diagonal lines on the right side of the building, and of course that means you need to switch vanishing points to the right side. And this side's a lot easier because you already have marked where the rows of bricks need to be. You're going to match up the lines on the left with the lines on the right. They should intersect and meet at the center line of the building. The last step to completing the brick pattern is to add those short vertical lines that are offset in that brick pattern. So start with your top row and divide it equally with your ruler, and that will determine how many bricks are going to be in that top row. And once you have your dots or your targets, then you know to line up your ruler to each one vertically. And on every other row of bricks, you're going to draw a short vertical line. In the blank rows of bricks, you need to draw that offset brick pattern. So right smack dab in the middle of 2 vertical lines, on the row below it, you need to add that vertical. It's hard to explain in words, so watch it happen, please. Oh yeah, one side of my building is done, decorated with bricks. Now I'm simply going to repeat that process on the right-hand side to create an entire brick tower. Now that you know how to draw buildings in 2-point perspective, windows and doors in 2-point perspective, and you can even add a little flair with some brick patterns, I want you to go crazy with this city. Make it however you want. You can even take the Crossroads idea, like I did, into the concept of this project. You can make the right-hand side of your city completely different than the left side. So you, as the viewer of the picture, feel like you need to make a decision at this crossroads. Are you going to go to the right or are you going to go to the left? Just something to consider. Or, of course, you can always make the entire city cohesive Again, my idea is to make the right side of my city kind of normal, with normal apartment buildings and doors and windows, and then on the left side of my cityscape, it's going to be a series of big, blocky, abstract-looking buildings that don't even look like they have a function or a use. I'm really excited to see what you add. Just make sure that on each building, you're using the left vanishing point for the left side and then the right vanishing point for the right side. And remember that any vertical lines can just simply be vertical, no vanishing point needed. Once your drawing is complete with pencil, pick out 2 black Sharpies to trace your image. Choose a fine point Sharpie and an ultra fine point Sharpie so that you can get the tiny details of your buildings with the ultra fine point, and then use a different line weight, the fine point Sharpie, maybe for the outlines of the buildings. And definitely use your ruler as you are tracing your city. The lines must be very straight and very particular and neat and tidy in order for this perspective piece to come together and create the illusion. Once you're finished drawing and tracing your 2-point perspective cityscape, it's time to color this thing. We are going to be using watercolor pencils in order to do it. You'll know that you've got a watercolor pencil if it has a symbol of a paintbrush on it. Make sure to double check each of your pencils before you start using them, because sometimes things happen and normal, regular colored pencils get mixed in with the watercolor ones, and that is no fun when you discover that. So the way that you use watercolor pencils is you color in the space, the building, the section of the building, whatever it might be, just like a normal colored pencil. And then you will need fresh, clean water and a clean paintbrush in order to activate that paint. So here you can see I chose a pink watercolor pencil and I just colored in this block segment of this building with it like normal. Next, I grabbed up a clean, fresh, wet paintbrush and I'm going to paint the water right onto the watercolor pencil. And as you can see, the pigment, the color in the colored pencil will liquefy and literally turn into watercolor paint. But it's so much easier to control than liquid watercolor paint or even pan watercolor paints. And the color becomes brighter and more vibrant once you activate it, and it becomes really nice and smooth and painterly. So definitely do a once over of all your buildings, the ground, and the sky. Color in this whole entire paper once at least with watercolor pencils. To create the effect of glass, grab up a soft pencil, maybe a 2B pencil, and do a gradient shade diagonally from the corner of the window. So I'm doing short diagonal lines that I press harder and then softer with my pencil, and then harder and then softer to create multiple dark to light gradients that go in a diagonal across the window. And it's an awesome effect that makes it look like reflective glass. After that's done, we need to start adding some value and shading to these buildings. First, you need to decide where the light is coming from. And then on the opposite side of where the light is coming from, on each facet of each building, you're going to need to darken the color to create a shadow. Now, a lot of people think, especially young artists, think that you should use black or a really dark gray to add shadows. But there's a different way to add a more colorful shadow, and here it is. Once you've decided where your shadows are going to go, you're going to start by adding dark blue to that space. And then once you've added the dark blue, you are going to add the complementary color of the local color of the building. The local color of an object means the color of the object. For example, a red rose. A rose is red, yes, but when you put it in certain lighting situations, the colors of the shadows change. The local color of the rose is still red, but the shadows are going to actually be different colors. So, once you've added dark blue to the shadow, you're going to add the complementary or opposite color of the local color of the building. Whew, that's a lot of words. So I've added my dark blue here to this green building. The local color of the building is green. The complementary color of green is red. So after I add the dark blue, I'm just going to add a little bit of red to the shadows as well. And this is going to create a really rich, deep, and warm shadow rather than a dull black or gray shadow. Another neat thing that you can do with watercolor pencil is add layering and textures. You just need to make sure that each layer of your watercolor pencil paint dries in between each go around. And what my plan is to add some dark green hash lines or short vertical lines all across this field of grass to create that grassy texture. And then once I'm done drawing all the little short lines, I'm going to activate the paint, of course, with water. I'm also going to deepen the color of the sky with another layer of the same color, coloring over it once more and activating it once more. And I think the sky turned out a lot smoother and more vibrant than before. The last thing I need to do is add shadows with dark blue and the complementary color of the local color of each building. I'm going to think about where the light is coming from and where the light can't get to. And where the light can't get to should be a shadow. You're finished with this project when it is completely drawn and traced, colored in, including shadows.